Yeah, well, let's start off with that with a City's 1-0 defeat to Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. An uninspiring defeat last weekend with a I think when City walked out to that sort of bouncing atmosphere at the City ground that Forest fans generated, it seemed that City would need to be at the best for this game against a Forest side that are, hungry Forest side that are also going for Champions League football.
Yeah.
And although City, had their moments and dominated possession as usual, they ultimately lacked that cutting edge in the final third, didn't they, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean that pretty much sums it up. I felt City were definitely better in some aspects than we have been in the past few months. But creatively, we had very little to offer. A lot of the credit has to go to Forest there because they defended really well. Murillo is a phenomenal player and had a cracking time against Doku, who previously struggled. So they defended well and they did their job. But I think City will feel frustrated by. Um, what was a golden opportunity, you would argue, to get 3 points away at an incredibly tough side to go to because it didn't feel, impossible to create something. Ultimately, like the defense was good for the vast majority of the game. Forest, of course, have been excellent this season. They're up there deservedly so. But I felt what City have been poor at this year is sort of managing transitions. Keeping chances down to the minimum, and we've been consistently conceding big chances against pretty much everyone. But we defended really well for the large part of the game, and we controlled it in terms of possession and so on. And it was only really when actually Nico Gonzalez went off and City started to tire towards the end of the half, where under the end of the second half, where maybe we lost our composure a little bit, which led to a very soft goal to concede. Vardiol has to do better than let Hudson-Odoi run that far and get a shot away, and Ederson has to do better at the near post because that world class save he made 10, 15 minutes earlier was essentially irrelevant. Um, and then City had no real response to that. We struggled to create chances after the first 20, 25 minutes where City had one or two little, decent efforts where Haaland maybe could have felt he'd done better. But yeah, we struggled creatively. Like we were pretty predictable. Not much dynamism, spark. The wingers, Doku and Savino, both had an off day, and so much of our creativity these days, without De Bruyne at his best, goes through those two. And if they're not on it, that's what happens. Essentially, very little created, and we had no real response after they scored their goal.
Yeah, I think in the reverse fixture at the end of last year, which we City won 3-0 at Etihad, Forest were sort of uncharacteristically carved wide open in that game, and City exploited that
Yeah,
when they scored their three goals. But in this one at the weekend, Forest were back to the best, really compact and well organised, and it just made it really difficult for City to break them down. City were too slow, which Guardiola stated after the match as well, and yeah, they just struggled to create a lot of high quality openings really, and it was frustrating to watch from City from an attacking perspective anyway. And
yeah.
of course, City are not the first team to struggle against Forest this season, but I think sort of the maybe the listlessness of their attack will worry City, worry Guardiola, sorry, a little bit. And do you think this was just maybe a bad day at the office for City in attack, or is there maybe a deeper issue emerging? How do you think Guardiola will solve this heading down the home straight now? Because the chances that Haaland, no one's really creating much for Haaland in that game anyway. So that's something that needs to improve in the heading down the home straight now.
Absolutely. I do think creativity is a big problem for City, actually. Because obviously De Bruyne, the best creator this league has ever seen, and that's not even my opinion. That's objective. The rate that he creates chances and the assist records is broken. Yeah, an absurdly talented creator, and understandably and naturally, City have lent on him a lot over the years because he's the best at doing it. And then you look back to the creativity of someone like Mahrez out wide, or even having Rodri, in the side. Rodri's so good at those diagonal passes that sort of shifted the direction of play so well. He's not there. Nico Gonzalez looks talented, but he's not that level yet. So many different avenues of success that City have had over the years just aren't there right now. De Bruyne he looks like he's on his way out, unfortunately. Phil Foden's had a really off season, so the creativity is definitely not coming from him right now. I would argue that as talented as Doku and Savino are, they're still a little bit level below, say a peak Mahrez or something like that. And in the midfield, look, Bernardo, he's not had a great season creatively, and he hasn't really been a force there for a long time. Go back to a couple of years ago, you had Gundogan, who's so creative and so subtle in his movements around the box. It's not there anymore, unfortunately, either. And we didn't really get a chance to see much of, Vardiol get forward, like he can do because the way that they play sort of negated that opportunity for City. So yeah, there is an issue there creatively. Like you do wonder, Look, they're very young, these wingers. They'll get better, as they get older. Who knows, the returning Oscar Bob could change that for next season too. And maybe, the talented Echeverry that we chatted about last week, maybe he's one for the future. But there is a definite need, I would say, for, with De Bruyne about to move on, a proper number 10, a really creative player who can up the volume of chances and get us ticking differently. Look, I know Rodri returning will make a difference and so on and so on. But I do think it's an issue that City will have to address. Essentially, creativity and probably technical brilliance in the middle, because I think our technical standards, once again, I guess the reference point, but go back to the treble, which is only about 20 months ago. It was Rodri, Gundogan, so smart and intelligent, and De Bruyne, an incredible passer from any angle with either foot. We don't really have anything close to that right now, because Gundogan's not there, Rodri's not there, and Foden is not really stepping up, creatively. So yeah, I think it's a real issue. I think it's something that we can't just rely on our wingers. We need ingenuity from the centre, and we've got none of that currently, unfortunately, because you're not getting that from Bernardo, you're not getting it from Foden currently. Gundogan and De Bruyne are on the way out. And you're not really getting it from Kovacic either or Nico Gonzalez because they're not essentially creators. So yeah, I think City's midfield is an issue. It's either the wingers do something or no one does, as it currently feels.
And do you think it's a case of maybe City just becoming too predictable and Guardiola maybe needs to change something up, or is it just that these players that are playing at the moment, a lot of them are inconsistent out of form? You mentioned Foden then, and what sort of maybe the real issue do you think that's behind this at the moment, particularly this season?
City have always been predictable, but they were just too good that you couldn't do anything about it. So I don't really buy into the predictability as an issue because look, everyone knows how City played. Guardiola's never hidden it, but we were just too good. As I said, you had De Bruyne who would just pick a pass that no one else could stop because you can't stop the perfect cross if it's aimed directly at 6'4" forward's head. It doesn't matter how good you are. If it lands on his head, you cannot stop it, and that's what De Bruyne was so good at. And once again, you can't stop it if Rodri just decides to smack it in the top corner from 20 yards, because it's just impossible. So essentially, City had too much quality anyway, even if it was predictable. They'd get the goal through brilliance, and then after that, the game would open up and City would go on to score more goals. So I think there's an element of being predictable, but predictable with less quality is I'd probably put down the issue too. I don't think it's anything to do other than just, as we've discussed many times, just time catching up with Man City. I think, unfortunately, the creative outlets have gotten old or moved on, or aren't available via injuries and so on. So I think, yeah, Gundogan, De Bruyne aren't it anymore. I don't think, look, there's still quality to De Bruyne, I'm sure, but look, the difference between De Bruyne now and where he's at, it's ridiculous. He was a genius, and this De Bruyne right now with his age is not a genius. He's a very good player, but we're talking being a very good player to one of the best to ever do it. It's such a big difference between those two standards. So yeah, I think that when you add Foden in that form, he has to do better next season. I'm sure he will do. But you add Foden in that form to that. Yeah, I think unfortunately, I don't think there's much more we can do right now. I think we are just if a team is as good as Forest and as well organised as they are defensively, they're so happy to sit back at their own ground, and wait for the trap to spring and run at us. Then I don't think we've got much of a solution right now until either Rodri comes back and Foden finds form, or we get another creative player. So yeah, I think that's just the crux of it.
Yeah, and that defeat to Forest leaves City's Champions League hopes in jeopardy still. Guardiola said that City have 10 finals now to prepare for, 10 more Premier League games to secure a top four or top five finish. From City's perspective, Stephen, how do you see this hotly contested race for the Champions League at the moment now?
I think City will do it. I'm pretty confident. I'm looking at City's fixtures coming up now. Brighton at home. The Brighton are a very good side, but at home, yeah, I'd expect City to be able to get something there. Then you got Leicester at home. I think that should be a win. United away. It's a derby, and we see what they could do yesterday against Arsenal. They're a very unpredictable side, United, but they're largely poor at their own ground. And if City show up, it should be a victory there too. Palace at home should be a victory. Everton away, I don't know. Look, the fixtures are reasonably favourable. Then we've got Villa at home, Wolves at home, Southampton away, Bournemouth, and Fulham. So I do think City have the potential to the potential to get top four. We all know that, and I actually think they will do. I think ultimately they've got a little bit too much quality. We're currently starting fifth. Well, fifth. It might be fifth, isn't it? Is it that is confirmed
Well,
yet? When will we know?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's very likely now that England will get that fifth spot. So, I mean, top four will guarantee it, but fifth spot could well be Champions League spot.
Isn't it weird that we don't know what we're aiming for? By the way, teams have no idea if they're aiming for fourth
Yeah.
or fifth until
I
some
think I
random.
think the coefficient ranks fluctuate a little bit, but I think England at the moment are pretty ahead. So I think it's just not absolutely nailed on, but
Yeah,
I think
it
it
is
is
wild though that
expected.
it's just an arbitrary um, day randomly. We'll just decide
Yeah.
when we put this Champions League football or not. But that's. I feel like you should know for the season if that makes sense. For the what
Mm.
it should be for the one after, so everyone knows that you get fifth this season, you're going to get it. But yeah, anyway, but yeah, I think if it's top five, I'd be amazed if City finish below. You know, below that, given Brighton, Villa, Bournemouth, Newcastle, good sides there. But I still think City are capable. So we got what 9 games left or 10 games left.
10 games, yeah.
I think City will win six of them minimum, 5 or 6 minimum, and I think that'll be enough. Maybe a couple of defeats, maybe a couple of draws, but I think City should have enough. And the squad's getting fitter, it's getting healthier. Forest are one of the best sides we had left to play, and it was away from home. I suspect if that's at home, it might be a different story because they play differently. And I think Doku and Savino, I'd be amazed if the pair of them have an off day at the same time again as well. And usually, when we click, we're all right. We create enough chances to win, and the defense look better, so I think we'll do it.